Good evening, everyone. Tashitele. So we start with our session with the refuge prayer and the mandala with everything. Okay. O sanje chedan zoge jonam la janju bandu dane jasu je lage jenso ngebe sonam ge ndola penje sanje ndobara jo sanje chedan zoge jonam la janju bandu dane jasu je lage jenso ngebe sonam ge ndola penje sanje ndobara jo sanje chedan zoge jonam la janju bandu dane jasu Dage jinsu ngebe sunam gen drola penje sanje drobara jo sanje judan soge shunam la chanju bandu dane japsu shi. Dage jinsu ngebe sunam gen drola penje sanje drobara jo semje tamje dewa dan dewe judan dembara juje donga dan donga gen judan drawara jush. Dunga mebe dewa tamba dan mendra wan juje nyeren chadan nyedan drewe tanyum chembola nebaran jurunje semje tamje dewa dan dewe judan dembran juje dunga dan dunga enge judan drawaran juj dunga mebe dewa tamba dan mendra wan juje nyeren chadan nyedan drewe tanyum chembola nebaran jurunje semje tamje dewa dan dewe judan dembra juje dunga dan dunga enge judan drawaran juje dunga mebe dewa tamba dan mendra wan juje nyeren chadan nyedan drewe tanyum chembola nebaran jurunje changze wada jujin xiaohua dan jesu yirang guixin sowai gewa zhongze dage jizaba tamje dage changzhu qian borong o sa xi bu xi zhongxi medo zhanggri ra lingxi niande jianba de sangje xingde meide buwai zhuge namda xinglan juan bara yu Pandan zawe lama rinpoche dagin churu pimenden shula kajin chenpe kwane jisonde kusong tu king kwanju zamdo so. So everybody, you visualize your own guru. I visualize my own guru Siddha Rinpoche in my refuge tree as my witness. And then you visualize your own refuge tree, whichever you feel comfortable with the pure intention. And then we start this creation and completion session. Okay, so we're talking about Nyumon Jurwa Tumo Sangalam. Okay, got it. So Nyumon Jurwa Tumen Sangalam, in a path of way to transform the, how do I say, the extraordinary method to transform and how do I say, the negativities, the way of utilizing, the way of the method in the path of Tantrayana is and and then as a Tantrayana practitioner, the method to transform the negativity into how do I say, into positivities, or basically dissolving the negativities. The method is, the Tantrayana method is, and when you have a strong attachment, decha means your mind attached to something, so decha ke se so in this case decha can be meant as starting from the sensation of lust, all the way to the fixation of attachment. It can be starting from the physical form of sensationalizing, the lust, and all the way to the fixation in itself, and the attachment, the very sensation of the attachment. So all these three things are seen as a dvecha. Okay, so dvecha is not something that is only something to do with lust. It's not only something to do with attachment, something that you're attached to. It can go all the way to the the very sensation, the state of mind of the fixated mind, you know. Like an example, this is my identity, this is who I am, this is me, nobody can, how do I say, destroy me, I'm the great, I am the perfect being, you know, like that one is also seen as an attachment, okay? So the attachment, because many of us, when we think about attachment, we think about, you know, we reflect within our own capacity. You know, we say, I'm attached to my husband, I'm attached to my wife, I'm attached to my family. And then we, you know, and I'm attached to my job, I'm attached to my position. We try to put the idea of attachment very narrow, you know, very limited understanding in itself. You know, so therefore we need to improve the understanding and the how do I say, the magnitude, the meaning of the so-called the attachment, right? So that is very important for all of us to know, because, you know, you can be abandoned, you know, you can be, or I say, you might be living in a solitary place, but then you might be attached to certain things. It can be a simple object. Even if you are attached to a simple object, you are not absent from the meaning of attachment. It, regardless of the size, the shape, the quantity, the amount, you know, it is still attachment, right? So you need to have this perception of more broader perspective, that it's not something that I have a lust sensation, now I visualize a deity, then it solves the problem. You know, that's not what it's trying to say. You know, because we try to take many things a little bit like a painkiller, you know, and that's not the right perception. The right perception is, like an example here, Döcha means, you know, when the sensation of attachment, right? When the sensation of the attachment arises, then you visualize Amitabha, right? Then you visualize Amitabha. And then you also visualize the Dhaka, Dakini with the concert, with the union also. Hashikom, you can also visualize like that. And then Dwesha Toba Idam Haruju. So whatever the projection of attachment may exist in your mind in that very moment can transform, because you are no longer dwelling into the illusion of the attachment, right? You are no longer dwelling into the realm of the attachment or the cycle of the attachment or the illusion of the attachment. Your mind is, you know, connecting, you know, with the form of deity, the form of some sense of clarity, you know. So that's that. And that's the meaning of transformative state, you know, because when we think about transforming, we think that, there is a negative, now I have to transform the negative, you know. We have this very fixated idea even to the negative itself. In order to solve the negative cycle of illusion, you have to see the negative as just another wave in the sea, you know, rather than exaggerating. When you exaggerate too much, then you lose the touch with the reality of the negativities, which, you know, you won't be able to overcome with your practice in this transformative state. So in order to make this subtle, genuine, from negative to positive transformative stages, is that you have a clear understanding what is the definition of Nyumo. Nyumo means the cycle of illusion, the illusion itself, the attachment itself, the sensation of the attachment, you know, the wide range of the attachment, and the illusion from the attachment, the righteous, you know, the justifying, you know, how do I say, mindset within that attachment illusion. You know, it's a whole bubble, isn't it? So therefore, having a clear understanding with that as a foundation, and then on the top of that, when you visualize the deity, and then when you witness the sensation of the attachment, sensation of anger, sensation of jealousy, let alone the very feeling of jealousy, let alone the result of the jealousy. We are discussing the moment we experiencing the sensation, right? This is not something that you are committing jealousy and then you say, oh, I have to visualize a deity. This is not the solution. The solution is you stop when it's small. And that is when you have a sensation of attachment, like an example, I want to, I would like to, you're not really clear what you want, but you want to, that small voice that is within our mind, I would like to, I wish to, I hope to, and in some sort of a blurry destination, not really a clear object of what you want to retrieve or to be in contact with, but simply some sort of sensation, and that is, coming in your mind. In that very moment, you visualize a deity. You understand the method? So that is the right approach, Because if you say, oh, I have a jealousy, I argue, I fight, and now I want to visualize deity, then again, that's not really the real purpose as a practitioner, It's seen as a temporarily failure. So yeah. So there's a to idam haruju nyumo shenla de drawarcha. So you must implement that just as to all the other nyumongpa. Nyumongpa means all the useless emotions. Let's put it like this. Nyumongpa means useless emotions, a useless state of mind. Like an example, the attachment is a useless, arrogant is useless, jealousy is useless, anger is useless. So therefore we call nyumong, right? Such state of emotion that is absent from the clarity, that is absent from the wisdom, So therefore we call it nyumong, So whenever there's other sort of how do I say negativity, let's put it like this, and then we must implement this how do I say, this method. So that's that. So now I'm going to the new chapter. Okay. Nyumo ranshin sheba kebarlam. Nyumo ranshin sheba kebarlam. Decha topa lamlam sharvetse. Ngo chirge teba ransaya. Nyumo ranshin sheba kebarlam. The profound path, the profound practice is, how do I say, whenever there is a sensation, dwecha topa lam gisharvetse. Dwecha means attachment. Topa means the first thought, the first thought, the birth of that thought, Topa does not mean you have created such things yet. Topa means the first thought in your mind, right? So it is not the second thought, not the third thought, not the fifth thought. The first thought of that particular emotion. First thought of the anger sensation. The first thought of jealousy sensation, right? The first thought. And when you have that thought, you have an image in your mind, right? You have an image. First you subconsciously have this thought. Then you try to make a sense out of that thought. Then such jealousy, hatred tend to appear subconsciously in our mind, into our behavior, into our attitude, into our decision, and so on, which I don't have to explain. What I'm trying to explain is that the ultimate path, ultimate way of practicing is that when you have this first moment of thought of attachment, lamge sharwetse, in that very particular moment, in that very moment appearance of the attachment thought, the first bubble thought, in that very moment, you simply look at that thought. not after, but rather, there's the emergence of the, how do I say, the emergence of the attachment arises. It does not come to the conclusion of creating any sort of clear object of aim or desire or willing to commit such things. But that birth of the attachment, the sensation of the attachment arise, that is seen as a first thought. In that very moment of the first thought, you look through your mind to that. You understand? So just to be clear how to utilize this, how to use it, as a practice. Otherwise, we don't understand, because we say, okay, you look at your attachment, so what? Then we say, okay, I look at my attachment, and then I don't know what happened, and then it took control of me, and then I took my stupid decision, and then we cry, and then we regret, and so on and so forth. So therefore, as a practitioner, and this, as a practitioner, so where in a level of projection of thoughts, there's a thought arising or emerge, and there's a thought in a state of continuity, and then there's a thought in a transformative state, projecting into another state of emotion, another state of category of sense of jealousy or self-righteous or whatever the other sensational, may be. But the first thought, when we are witnessing the birth of that thought in that very moment, then we simply look at that thought. And then as you look into this, the very, subconsciously, that is the attachment. You are not trying to concentrate and say, where is the attachment? I think that is the attachment, not like being, not trying to be scientific too much. You understand? It's more like a very subtle, soft touch, but a very clear touch. Soft and very clear touch. The approach should not be like, oh, where is this attachment that he's talking about? I think I have this attachment, and then having, a little bit like going to a Mars scientist, then it becomes off the track. So the very accurate method is that the moment there's a sensation of attachment, the clear image of attachment did not appear yet. Aim and objective of the attachment did not appear yet, but the sensation of the attachment, some sort of blurry thought arises, not fully arisen yet, arises. In that very moment, you gaze, you look right to that with a sense of gentleness, with a sense of clearness in your mind. And when you look with that sense of mind approach, I wouldn't say attitude. Attitude is too strong, a sense of mind approach like that, with no negative opinion. Very important. No negative opinion just because somebody says it's your attachment, just because I say it's attachment. You have no subconscious negative opinion about it. You have a very gentle approach. As you make the gentle approach by itself with a very soft touch, and then that very birth of the sensation of the attachment disappears by itself. Rangsal yel. Rangsal yel means wherever it appeared from, it dissolved to that state, which means disappears. Okay? And detong yerme charge chembushar. And then if you're able to have that sense of, how do I say, this sort of clarity, and then this can be transformative into the Mahamudra. You understand? Yeah. So then it can be transformative into the Mahamudra. Because the difference between ordinary practitioner in the beginning is that in the beginning, we have attachment, it is risen, we commit, we do something, we realize after, and then some practitioner, as they, practice gradually, and then attachment arises, imagination continues, and then they condemn their imagination and they say that's wrong, and then they kind of slow it down. And this one, what I just explained, can happen over time for you if you are a genuine practitioner, because your mind becomes more sharper and more clear, more distinctive, and then more calm and clear and distinctive, yeah. Basically, your mind becomes like a periscope, being able to distinguish as you continue to practice. Right now it's a little bit like we don't have a microscope, we just have a normal glass. Yeah. We don't see it. We see it. Okay, so the glass is a little bit like being a little bit advanced practitioner. Then you say, yes, I can see it. And then, as you continue, then you see things in the microscope level and distinctive, and you don't have an opinion, you just see, witness, overcome, and then in that state, you can transform into the clear state of mind, so yeah, because if your mind cannot make, if you cannot accumulate, or I wouldn't say accumulate, if you don't have a strong foundation of having this distinctive state of mind with the accumulation of awareness, or mindfulness, you can call it mindfulness, awareness, then when you accumulate that over time, then you tend to have more distinctive, slowly. As you have more distinctive quality, inseparable with awareness, with the mindfulness and awareness, and then such experience like this is a possibility in our lifetime, in a few years, few months, so you should not see yourself like I'm nobody, I'm a Westerner, and I cannot do retreat, I cannot do practice. You should not view like that. If you put in heart and mind with it, and it will come. And then, this is a susutobi, the natural wisdom, we call it the natural wisdom. So my answer to you is that how do you transform this negativity into into this clear state? Because when you are able to make the distinction, between the calm state of mind and then the birth of the projection of thought, and then when you recognize the projection of thought, the birth of the projection of thought, not the projection of thought, the birth of the projection of thought, then when you're able to dissolve that with a very natural approach, very, very, very natural approach, and when you're able, when you dissolve that, and then it naturally becomes a clear state of mind, a clear awareness, the clear, not light, but clear awareness, and then the radiance sensation, the unspeakable experience of emptiness, all these three experiences can combine together at that moment, because you are partially liberated from the cycle of illusion. When you are absent from the illusion, you are enlightened or realized being. So we have to remain that way. We should not just go back and forth. We have to remain that way. So the Buddha is enlightened being because he remained that way, not out of fear, not out of desire, way, way, way beyond that. Yeah. So that's just our, so that's that. So now let's go to the next one. So this is something we have to be very careful in our life, because it says that of course, this is a natural wisdom, right? The organic wisdom, you can call it like that. From the beginning, there's nothing to abandon and there's nothing to accept. And this sentence is very, very dangerous for the individual who have a very big ego, because when we recognize a little bit, then we say, oh, I have nothing to accept, I have nothing to abandon. I think I reached some sort of unique level, or something you may not understand, that kind of egoistic start to appear. And that's something that we have to be careful. That's why we keep the Vajrayana secret, or supposed to keep secret. Let's put it like this, because it can be misunderstood. It is not a secret club, it just can be misunderstood. That's why it is shown gradually over time, slowly. So, dene bandome landome judumeba tamji semsudu judumeba tamji sesudu. Everything is the state of the mind, appearance. Semni machu shana sanjiki gobadele sheme shebao. And if you don't alter your mind, if you don't touch your mind, it is the Buddha state. There's no other alternative explanation other than this. Tesum tento chigdo nyamlang tap jawa yangun bai shebani penan dwesha toba kebese kema tabo kema tautu teni changchuba dage dwesha toba rangchuba chere kamdu pansum temperature teni nanga chambe semjena dwesha toba juba yang donga missing. Okay, so it's saying tesum tento chigdo nyamlang tap jawa yangun bai shebani penan dwesha toba kebese kema tabo teni changchuba dage dwesha toba rangchuba and then like an example, when you have, now it's coming back to the ordinary level, right? So when we have a strong sensation of attachment, in that very moment we say, I will abandon this this attachment, I will abandon this attachment, and so that I can reach to the Buddhahood. Then in Nangacha Besemjin Doba, Doesha Toba, Ranju Parimbe, Donga Misit, Kayama, Chese Shinin and Vituju, Doesha Toba Pachisawasu, Tamje Rangitela, okay, do. So this is a little bit like a Tonglen practice, because you are saying that you are making a prayer to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then you are also saying that all the sentient beings are suffering due to the attachment. Therefore, they go through an immense cycle of suffering due to the attachment. So therefore, I will magnetize all their attachment. Tamche rangedela ubgidu means I will magnetize. I make a aspiration prayer, so that I magnetize all their attachment instantly. Ubgidu means instantly. Dronam tamche dvecha semjengkom. Dronam tamche dvecha semjengkom means how do I say? Dronam tamche dvecha semjengkom, and then. And so therefore, you keep in mind that, all the sentient beings are absent from the attachment, so you think about that, and then you meditate. And then also dedicating all this positivity action to all the sentient beings, to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and liberating all the sentient beings to to the place of all the, to the nirvana, basically. And Gecheremi, Gechi Decho, Heruka, Yayun Shazu, Genso Sawa, Gom, and then all of a sudden you visualize yourself as a Heruka. Heruka means masculine, how do I say, masculine, or you can visualize a feminine. It doesn't really matter, so you can visualize yourself as a feminine, you can visualize yourself as a masculine, whether it's Vajrayogini, whether it's how do I say, the Hevajra, or whether it's Chakrasambhara. That is absolutely your choice. Yeah. Tadon Dwecha Duru so try to visualize all this beautiful ornaments and everything. So if you are, how do I say, if you are straight, you are attracted to a woman, right? So if you are, how do I say, if you are a woman, and then you are, female straight, then you are attracted to men. If you are, how do I say, a lesbian or gay, then you have to find a different method. You understand? You should not go in the direction of your own weakness. Because it says here, don't try to concentrate, into the image of where the lust sensation, where the attachment sensation may increase. So therefore, try to avoid such a deity that gives you different wrong imagination. Try to visualize on the deity that gives you a clear state of mind. And so that's something very important that we have to keep in mind, because we often say that, how can I find a deity? I need to find a deity. So this explains itself. So long as you find a deity that brings you a sense of clarity in mind, a purity in mind, then that's your deity. You don't need to make it so ceremonial about it, unless you want to. Unless you want to, unless you go to one Rinpoche and say, Rinpoche, which one is my guru? And then the Rinpoche says, this is the dream I had, and I saw this one in your dream, and then I also see the auspicious sign, and then this is your deity from now on. If you want to have that kind of dramatic, things, why not? It can happen, why not? But, to choose the deity is quite simple. And Shigate Hajayun Satana Tadon de Chaturo Neri Doro Tani and then a neck up to the Chorata Tado Ransom de want to short and Jerian Sakon Gomne Numonso Jiten Namto Jesu Dameron they took a better than dento. So it also is saying a very important key principle of a visualization of the deity. When in general, when you are visualizing a deity, you should not have any habit of ordinary way of doing things. Like example, screaming, shouting, talking to other people. All these things has to abandon. So that's why it's very important when you are practicing for 15 to 10 minutes or maybe half an hour, just avoid all the ordinary engagement, right? Just focus into the deity and the deity only, so that's another key principle. One is how to find the deity, which is if you find a sense of clarity in your mind by visualizing that deity, then it's your deity. Second, when you are visualizing the deity, the principle or the samaya is not to engage with the ordinary activities, rather being still with one's own mind, So, now jigden means ordinary. Namdo means ordinary thoughts. Jesu dhammi means should not follow after, dhammi. So now, such visualization method. So now it comes down to the visualization method. Te tuga pede dentendo tsewe lama and zinjin dembrangom daju like a docha togandi sorto yeshi chawa chingelo Kajimeba Yaya Sowato, Daniel Hadan Lama Numonsum, Yemera Semina Regeta, Gomu Rington Numon Kenison, Lamde Mason, choose Zamjon. Okay, so he's saying, Zavelama, they took a better than they do. So now you are visualizing a deity, right? You're visualizing Heruka, Vajrayogini, whichever the deity you may be visualizing. It can be a peaceful one, it can be a wrathful one. It's absolutely your choice. Okay, so it doesn't have to be Vajrayogini or Chakasambhara. In your heart, you have to visualize Tukar. Tukar means your heart. Tukar Pede. Pede means Padma. Padma, and on the top of the Padma, and then there's a flat moon. Like an example, like this is the, how do I say, this is the, this is the Padma. This is the Padma, and then this is a flower on the, how to say, this is the moon on the top. So a little bit like a flat moon, right? So you have the, flower underneath, and then you have a flat moon under, like that. Then you are visualizing whatever the, so you have the Padma like this, with the petals facing up, and then on the top of that, a little bit like, like a slightly, like a carpet. They took a bit do, flat moon kind of, then do flat moon. Lama and Zijit Dambrakum. So you visualize your own guru, so okay, so there's somebody is asking. So there's one question I think I should answer, because just to be clear. Dear Mitchell, just to be clear, don't we need to have of the proper empowerments, the long and the textual explanation before the visualizing deities? Many things. I think you can visualize deities such as like Grindara or Avalokiteshvara, or Vajrapani or something. You can visualize something simple. It doesn't have to be a tantric deity. It can be, any of the 8, bodhisattvas, amitabhas, all this kind of Buddhas and bodhisattvas, right? You can visualize one of them. So, any part of the sutra, bodhisattva figure or appearance, you don't need to receive empowerment or transmission. Any part of the tantric, you have to receive transmission, empowerment, and all this matters, so. Okay, so I just wanted to be clear with that. Means you're visualizing your own guru. So you're visualizing your own guru. Guru does not mean has to be somebody in a human form. It can be somebody that you consider supreme or great or enlightened. Guru does not mean something in a human figure. It can be something like, somebody that you consider with the highest respect. Like an example, Milarepa is a renowned Mahasiddha, right? So then you say, I have a tremendous respect to the, how do I say, the great Mahasiddha, Milarepa, the equal Mahasiddha level of all the Indian Mahasiddha, right? So like that, you say, that is my guru. In the teachings of the Jamgun Kongtulu Taye, in the teaching it says Ngidun Dreme means the lamp, it's basically is a preliminary teachings. So in the teachings of the Jamgun Kongtulu Taye, he said, if you don't have a guru, visualize the Milarepa, Marpa, Lotsawa, Vajradhara, like an example in the Shampa lineage, you visualize Niguma or Sukhasiddhi, things like that. It really doesn't matter. And then slowly, when you engage more and more with the human guru, then you visualize the human guru afterwards, But if you don't have it, don't rush it, Okay, so you visualize whatever the appearance may be, like an example, Milarepa, Buddha Shakyamuni, or it can be Tusun Kemba, all this thing, and then you visualize them not just in a flesh and bone appearance, but more radiating appearance. Daju lagen dwesha tokpandi so sorto ishi charwa chingelo. So what is this? Okay. Then hadan laman daju laman zishi tembo daju lagen dwesha tokpandi sorto ishi charwa chingelo. So this as I have this attachment to myself, sorto ishi charwa chingelo, it means how to say, so that I can make a self-liberation from that, absent from all this negativity of attachment, and then transformative realization into the wisdom, the supreme wisdom. So please bless me like that, and then making a prayer like that, Kashimeba Yaya Sowada. Kashimeba Yaya Sowada means not just once or twice, repeating several times again and again. And I think here I need to indicate something a little bit more clearly as possible. And that is, we say that, oh, we are Buddhists. We are not supposed to be worship, a blind worship or things like that. The blind worship is that, when you don't know the purpose, when you don't know the purpose, when you don't have the full understanding, and then just throwing yourself over there and saying, save me, that's a blind worship. And if you are making a prayer based on, understanding that you need to make a prayer so that you can be absent from the egoistic attitude, from the self-attachment attitude, so therefore accumulating prayers and again, making prayer again and again will eventually help you to be absent from all this negative habit. Therefore I take a refuge, therefore I practice Dharma, therefore I make a prayer. So when you have that kind of a mindset approach, then it's not a blind faith worship. So Kashimeva Yaya Soda. Then after that you say Ha means deity in this very moment, in this in this meaning. Ha means deity, Lama means your guru, Nyumo means your attachment, your negative emotion. Then Hada Lama Nyumo Sum, Yeme Ransim Yana Shigerta, and then inseparably combining together and look into your mind. Shigerta means without any negative opinion or any positive opinion. Shigerta means clearly looking. Shikirta, ta means look. Shikir means clearly looking. The meaning of that means without any opinion. Yenme ransib nyela shikir ta. Gomyun rindo nyomon kenisong lamdo masong chuzon jone tar. And you don't have to accumulate a very long period of time. You can do a little bit short, and then when you have some sort of disturbing thoughts in your mind, and then you make a dedication prayer. And dedication prayer is Gede Trube Semje Malutan, Chönze Namgi, Salam Parisheso. So by the accumulation of this, your aspiration in prayer is, by the result of this, my practice, means all this, by the result of this accumulation, let it benefit to all the sentient beings, not even one left behind. by making all these offerings and the benefit, so then there's no blockade through the progress of the Dharma, realization progress. So, and they don't charge a show, and then let all the sentient beings, including yourself, be absent from all the negativities of emotions, and then they don't charge a show means then ultimately let all the sentient beings recognize the nature of the mind as that as aspiration. So that is an example. And then one person is saying, may I visualize Jamgu Kongzhu as a guru? You can visualize whoever you want. It's absolutely fine. There's no objection. And then even by making a dedication, you must dedicate, make a prayer in purely, genuinely as possible. Okay? So like an example, if you have an anger issue, you apply the same method, but he have mentioned it is much better impact when you do, if you have anger issue, just try to focus into a calm, peaceful deity, not a wrathful one. So that's what he said. Okay, let me remove this one. Okay, so now the next chapter, the verse is very important. Tamil Trunam Dola Kirimde. Tamil means ordinary. Trunam means true means anything that is in the state of moving, true, but you believe that is real, the illusion, right? Trunam, the appearance of illusion, the ordinary appearance of illusion, in order to abandon the ordinary illusion, we must, practice, or the method, to overcome, the method is kirim. Kirim means, how to say, visualization practice. So what does it mean by visualization practice? Because many of us, when we think about visualization, we think as that something to chant, something to recite, something to visualize in the front of us. We think that is the deity practice. But the deity is, is just one of them. The meaning of the creation practice means everything. Starting from the refuge, bodhicitta, awareness, confession, and then confession and bodhicitta vow, and then also the Vajrayana samayas, and so on and so forth. And then all these are, all these are seen as a creation practice. So it's not just visualizing the deity, it's not just visualizing the, the syllable and the mantras, So all of this, anything to do with your mind that is visualizing, consider within the category of visualization practice. So the best way to start the creation practice is start simple as possible. Simple in the sense that, like when we do shine practice, we train with our sensation. Like an example, you put a piece of stone in the front of you, and then you just simply look and concentrate to that stone, nothing before that, nothing after that, just that. That is called Shini practice, because visualizing right away into our mind can be very challenging, so therefore we try to meditate something with a solid object first. And then slowly you look on the valley. I don't know, many people live in the town. So, so you look on the valley, in a far distance on the valley, and then you meditate in that state of mind. You simply look at the valley and then beyond the distance. Or you look on the peak of the mountain and then just simply concentrate and then not having any disturbing thoughts, and even it does, and then resuming right away. Even there's projection of thoughts interrupting in between, letting it be, resuming again and again, like that. Or like an example, when you hear such sound from the outside world, when people talking, or when we hear the sound of the birds or the sound of the river, instead of imagination of the river, instead of the imagination of the bird, just looking at just simply listening to the very state of the sound and meditating in that level, not the imagination after the sound, not running after it, not having desire that, oh, I want to hear more. That's not sound meditation. Many people, when they think about sound meditation, they put their very expensive headphone and they say, I feel good, I like this music, I feel very calm, I feel really nice, I feel very peaceful. And then they imagine that is a sound meditation, the music meditation. It's a very far away from the music meditation. The sound meditation has nothing to do with the music. Music is beautiful in its own way, but the sound meditation has nothing to do with the instrument or the music. There's no appreciation to the music. There's no non-appreciation to the music. We just, witnessing to the sound through your ear, and then just simply your mind, along with it, and just simply being still with that thought, like that. Starting with the sound of the river, then with the crowded people, then you engage, when you're engaging with people, also having this continuity of awareness, rather than what he's saying, what she's saying, what he said, what she said, instead of that racing thoughts, you just simply, become a little bit like the echo itself, And that's how you learn to be awareness, of the mindfulness and awareness. That's how you develop over time. Okay, so going back to what I'm supposed to, and then even all the different categories of creation practice, like an example, Shine, Shamatha, Vipassana, visualizing a deity, refuge, Bodhisattva vow, all this visualization, is considered within the category of the creation practice, the creation visualization practice. Now, the second point is, in order to overcome the fixation, in order to overcome the fixation, we must practice the completion. So without practicing a completion, we cannot liberate ourselves from the fixated mind. So in order to overcome from the fixated world or the mind, we must practice the completion. So if you miss one of these two, there is no path to the Vajradhara. There is no path to the Nirvana. So these two has to synchronize, combine, and maintain. Yeah. Kezo yadal so Kezo yadal means, if you lose the track, of the creation and the completion practice, and then there's no conclusive result eventually, you know. Demendu kezo sonju sama laminja namdo jo gomdo mashawa sonju ngwe myon rejo cha chebe suju leche yimbe pang. So like even okay, so now there's a completion that we understood clearly, right? So I don't have to repeat that again, I hope. So what the people are saying, there's three. No. Okay. So kezo sonju sam okay. Chebe sonju leche yim okay. Kezo sonju sam lamija. So creation and completion synchronizing and combined together is a genuine practice, is a genuine path. Namto juwa gondo mashawa sonju nishe myon rejocha chube sonju loche yebepa. But eventually, you know, such idea of such idea with opinion, even that one has to be abandoned. You know, anything that is a duality, you know, that also has to abandon or overcome. Let's put it like this. You know, like an example, if you have an opinion, then you have an imagination or strong thought or strong fixation, you know, then with that approach, you cannot recognize the nature of mind, you know, because you're not approaching naturally, you know, you are having your own fixated idea, you know. So therefore, you know, in order to, you know, reach to the nature of mind state level, we must, you know, balance between the creation and completion, combining and synchronizing together, and ultimately reaching to the quality of the mind that is beyond the duality and that is beyond the opinion, you know. So that's that. Then Kerim Gombar Chabala, Janshi Janji, Jonji Janjege, Golden Chogosamshi Chava. Good. Janshi Chuin Taden de Machi, the Jinin Goto Yoncha, Chuke Yunden Tempe Sojande, Yishi Tanji, Shobai, Janshi, Janja Tomentun, Maribe, Lobo Tribe, Chemishi Yindri, Ben Nimating Tribashi, Yunda Ranching and the Nisendra. Tema Lobo Saron Tendata, Nyumjo Yundu, Shete Janjay, Jonji, Ibn Anjo Tamaya, Nage Gonge, Doshi Gabasum, Nanjanga Doshi, Shigeta, Chogasumi, Gabasoin, John, Zugi Tenzo Gabajan, Kabajan, Kabara Janshi, Medun Ramay, Dordu Kayan Gami Shebetu, Tambor Mondo Gomne, Duremi. Choge remba suzo yueba yo, Janshi deshi nyingo, Tenila, Janja, Chive Navishi Shone Song, Zene Chive Pachi Trubade, Sanin Choge remba Mendaya. So eventually I skip probably one, you know, probably a little bit further. Zene Chive Pachi Trubade, Sanin Choge remba Mendaya. So there's a olden tradition, there's a new tradition, there's a many different method. Our ultimate goal is to renounce and to overcome this duality state of mind. You know, so all of us, we have a potential to reach enlightenment. All of us. It is just simply temporarily covered with our ignorance and illusion, like the cloud that is covering the sun. Penna, minitabo, tonmenzo, kanan koronson, sendraso, nella nimbosto sangabashi, janje dandar, jonje densuti, mingla tomanchesa, mingis, sojusa, jibashi, sani choga, batadeja, nyomontoso jama kebarme. there's, like I said previously, he's just repeating again. There's a many different way of practicing, different tradition, lineage, and so on and so forth. The new tradition, the old tradition, and ultimately there's only one goal. Tela chosen so the 대된 공배 ngārki chisi chōng, kēndēn gōmbē pārsi yu chōng, jūtēn pēn gōmbē, lōtēn pāmen kōtā kārmā chōng, sābēn gōmbā nāmshī shōgā chōng, chāngsēn jūdāng, nāyāng sābēn gō, mērmēn tātāng gōgō lāsō chōng, kōyōng zōbē, lōdūk tsēbā chōng, nēsum chīnlāng, gōsum pāshān chōng, ngāngyāng ngāyī ngākē chōng sūtē, shēndā 라야 데이리 되자 상라 라멘주데 가시니 주인도진 치세 용세다 제베도진 파신 줘봐 카산네와 코로나도 송보슨 제베 파셜르된 정마다 르선은 베예네 엔 토스문자 틸레 나가면 정서 매한데 쉐바데라 저 예신주고 저저 나와죠 왕그러제다 파게 포고죠 차샤 최대 요라 랑주죠. 자민데가 하게 만드는 느림 기반데 치시다. 하고 다음에 발시 중에서 제대미전들 도자모 원도 잡신 제종 오면 대전라나 메타메바. 최바전라 소그 콜로스. 베메촌유조가 연락고. So basically all the different visualization way of practicing the syllable and the purification of, purification and the creation of the deities and the syllable and all the mantras and the completion and dissolving state and the empowerment of all this different, method has its own impact, throughout, not just in this, not just bringing a sense of calmness or clarity, but it has its own singular, it has its own purpose, so, but at the end, like an example, when we are practicing, making a purification through our own offering, and then also making a dedication with the bodhicitta, and then continuing with the main true path, the duality path and the non-duality path, maintaining by this two is a fundamental key. So this time I reach on the 258. Okay. Okay. So any of you have a question? Few questions. And then I would like to give a good news announcement. Okay. Please explain the meaning of duality. Thank you. Meaning of duality. The meaning of duality is, in this level of duality, it means anything that is with the opinion. Anything that comes with opinion. With the opinion, you have a desire that you want to add something, and you have a fear that you are going to lose something. You have an opinion that you want to add something more in terms of visualization. So it is not really that harmful, but it's one of the things that we have to overcome, and because if you want to recognize the nature of the mind, then you have to recognize what is duality and what is non-duality. Like an example, when you are being in this clear state of mind, and then when you are in the clear state of mind with a sense of clarity, you are absent from opinion. Right? You are absent from opinion, Therefore, it is called non-duality, because you don't have not even a subtle desire that you want to add something in that moment. You don't even have a subtle fear that you're going to lose that. You don't have an expectation that you want to get something more from that. Your state of mind is simply clear and calm and transparency and radiating, from its very existence of the state of the emptiness. It's not a dull emptiness. Like a Sukha Siddhi, she said, Namka ringme tongbala rikche singde zawachun na tukwa sho. Like an example, Sukha Siddhi said, pointing finger in the sky. Our mind is like the space, like the sky, but the sky has no sense of knowing. It's just empty. We have a sense of knowing. And then we meditate, we recognize the nature of the mind, and then that becomes the state of non-duality. Up to that point, everything is duality. Not necessarily negative. Just to remind you, we have reached to the 258, before I forget. 258 is the English number, so please keep in mind. Otherwise, I put my text like this, because I have to put with my other text. Yeah. Okay. So now the second question. Okay. I think Jordi text mentions that there are different capacities. How can we know what our capacity is? I think, knowing the capacity, not knowing the capacity, I don't think we should be fearful too much in the beginning. That sense of understanding one's own capacity, I think it comes later on a little bit. When you become slightly advanced practitioner, then you know your capacity. In the beginning, you have no idea what is even the capacity means. You just make sure it doesn't disturb your family life, your job, and everything. Just make sure it doesn't go so crazy about the personal life. Just make sure you're connected with the Dharma. And then slowly, then, as you progress with your Dharma instructor, with your Sangha, with your practice, then you will start to have some sort of understanding what is your capacity. And your guru or your instructor will understand your capacity, things like that. What is the meaning of Salwa, Rigpa, Magapa? Salwa means clarity. Sal means clarity. Wa means tea. Clarity. Rigpa means sense of knowing. Magapa means transparency. Transparency, it has a two meaning in one way. Sometimes I call it not transparency. Radiant. I call it radiant. Because it's beyond the idea of distance. Because when we think about transparency, when we have the idea of transparency, we imagine something like a see-through kind of idea. When we think about transparency, we think of as if that little bit like a glass or a little bit like a net see-through. Then we think that as a transparency, object and transparency. And the nature of the mind is not a transparency, even though it says magagpa. Magagpa means without any blockade, or transparency, or without any blockade. I call it radiance, because it is beyond the description of distance. It has no definition of distance, because if there is a definition of distance, then there's the existence of place that you are projecting in your mind. If that exists, then it is not the nature of the mind. You understand what I mean? If you have the opinion or the idea, I see a beautiful mountain in my mind, then there's a place, there's a shape, there's a description, very rigid, that's a duality. And that is not a transparency. It's a transparency, or I call it the radiant. It means there's a, the sensation that is simply state of knowing and beyond the description of distance, I call it. Because when your eye look front, you see object, what is in the front of you or what is in the distance. When you recognize the nature of the mind, you are no longer looking at certain object or certain distance. You're looking at the state of the emptiness, the calmness, the clarity, the sense of knowing, and then the sense of knowing itself has, how do I say, it's a living, it's a living experience. It's not a cold, it's not something non-existent. It's something, it's a radiant, I call it. Magalpa means radiant. Something unstoppable, something that is very much alive, something that is, how do I say, object, but not in the sense of distance, beyond description of distance. Okay, so answer one last question. So I think just to give you a clear answer, don't try to understand the nature of the mind. If you try to understand, then you have so much opinion. You have too much opinion, then you are not in the natural state. Then it becomes the opinion Mahamudra, not the Mahamudra. It becomes the opinion Mahamudra. So don't try too hard to say, oh, I need to recognize, or oh, that's what he said, and what is the minimum, what is the maximum, how can I combine together, a little bit like a, chemical mixing, not like that. Just practice first, that will come later. What is it, Lasha? I don't understand what you said. Did you mean to say that in the beginning meant you should find another path than Dharma? I don't understand your question. Okay. Which approach should we practice in consulting department in a mental hospital when the doctors try on you all kind of medication? That I have no experience. I think the most important is that regardless of the mental state, any institution has to be respectful as possible to the patients. That's just my genuine opinion. Just because they are old, just because they are, how do I say, disabled, just because they are mentally disturbed, does not deserve less respect. And as a human being, you should treat them with respect, not as an experimental body, So that's just my basic opinion. Okay, so Lasha, you said that if we visualize same-sex deity, that is a delusion and it is wrong. Or did I misunderstood? What I'm trying to say is that if you are, if you are straight, if you're attracted to a woman, then visualize, yourself as a, as a masculine, and opposite like that, and then, so basically, enlightened deity has absolutely no category of gender, Of course, all the deities, their appearance from the state of Dharmakaya, to benefit all the sentient beings in a different form, so that's that. But just try to practice, understanding your own weakness and making sure that it doesn't go in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight or lesbian, it doesn't matter. As long as you practice Dharma, everything is fine. Yeah. Because like an example, in our Shampa retreat, there was one who was, men, and then who considered himself as a woman. And then he went in a woman retreat, and he turned out to be the one of the best Lama. So the gender really, I really don't, I don't give a damn. Let's put it like this, The most important is your genuine intention of helping others with oneself. As long as you have that, it's absolutely fine. O sonam de tamje zegwani tomne nye ben dana pamje ne gega na je balam provaye seben solen rowan rowan sho changju semjo rembo je mage panam genjo je geba nyamba meba gone gondo bewa sho. Thank you, everyone.